Mustafa, would you like to start?
Thank you, Buse, but you know the rule. Ladies first.
That's very kind of you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ELT conference held by Yenidoğu Schools. This is Buse speaking from Sancaktepe campus.
And this is Mustafa speaking from Bahçeşehir campus. Buse and I will be having you as our guests from 2:15 to 5:40. And Buse, would you like to start giving some information about the schedule?
Okay, well, there are mainly 3 parts in our program today. In the first part, we have 2 teachers from Yenidoğu Schools. They will be presenting really interesting topics and sharing their experiences with us. The second part, Mustafa?
In the second part, we have 4 well-known guests, live webinars. John Barth from Inkash Express Publishing, and Laura Moulton from Cambridge University Press, Tony Gore from Pearson, Turkey, Errol Artun from Duru ELT, and
we can never imagine an ELT conference without a raffle, right? So in the last part, we have a raffle.
Yes, Buse, you are absolutely right. What about our sponsors?
We would like to thank all of them. They contributed to this event with so many presents. Please pay attention to the chat box during the event. The certificate request form will be shared there, and the raffle will be held after the conference among those who filled out the form.
And by the way, let me remind everybody of our principle. Anyone working in our schools is not accepted in the raffle.
That's nice and quite fair. And now, let's start with our first presenter from your campus, Mustafa. Would you like to announce him?
I'd love to. He is not only a colleague for me, but also a dear friend. His name is Melhem Al-Addas. He is a teacher trainer, and these days he's trying to be a trainer of the teacher trainers. He really likes to improve himself. He can speak 3 languages, including English, Turkish, and Arabic. He has been working for Yenidoğu Schools for 5 years. Let's say 5, not 4. He has been teaching English for 16 years. Let's listen to him now. Yes, Melhem Al-Addas.
Hi everyone. I hope you are safe and sound, and I hope you are doing well. And today I'd like to share my presentation with you, which is about how to get red pill in learning and teaching. Let me share it with you right now. So the question, what is the red pill in learning and teaching, which is presented by me. My name is Melhem Al-Addas, and I'd like to share with you my experience in teaching, and I hope this presentation or the knowledge in this presentation would be helpful and beneficial to you. Let's get started. So the term red pill means, according to native English speakers, the truth behind a situation, especially a truth that is difficult to accept. And before I dive into the meaning of red pill in learning and teaching, I'd like to show you this chart, which is about the Dunning-Kruger Effect. And you can Google it and learn more about it. It's a very interesting thing. It says, the Dunning-Kruger Effect, they are psychologists and in the field of psychology. So they were talking about how things go on when it comes to our awareness of how much we don't know and how much we know. For example, for the people who don't know, or they have less knowledge or education comparing to others, so those people, unfortunately, they are very confident and they think themselves they know everything. And let's say those people represent, or let's say that we can see them as uneducated people or ignorant people, they think they know about everything in this life, and they are very confident, and this is very interesting. So the level of confidence is very high, right? But the more you learn, the more you discover things, the more you get educated, this confidence goes down, and you start asking questions, and you start feeling that you are uncertain about many things you have learned in your life. So this kind of questioning or uncertainty will lead you to discover more until you become an expert, because you want to expand your knowledge and learn more and more. So when you become an expert after a long journey of learning and discovering, you would become real educated, and you would become a confident person, and not an empty confident person, but you will be real confident person with great knowledge. And the most important thing, you would know how much you don't know. So if you want to be a professional and a real expert, experts know how much they don't know. Unlike the ignorant people or uneducated or fake educated people, that they don't know how much they don't know, and they think themselves they know. So, and this is also Gauss chart or blur. It's about the majority of people are followers and none, or let's say NPC, which stands for non-player characters. They are just followers. Whatever you offer them, they accept it. They don't even question it or look for the truth behind it. So they just accept whatever you offer them. And those are the 80% of people, according to this level of, let's say, the level of intelligence. So we have about 14% of people who think, who want to change, let's say, they like to find out the truth behind everything. So those people keep thinking if they are doing well, if the knowledge they hear about or they learn is right or not. So they keep looking for, they keep thinking, and this is the nature of things. As educators, we should be thinking about our teaching methodologies. Are the teaching methodologies that we are teaching, we are offering to our students, are these teaching methodologies beneficial, effective, or not? So red pill in learning and teaching, it's a revolution in teaching to invite educators to rethink about the teaching methodologies they are using, or they are, let's say, teaching to others, and they might be ineffective. They might be not suitable today to our learners and our students. So, before I dive into more, let me ask you this question. What is the purpose of education? And what are the best ways of achieving these purposes? In my opinion, the purpose of education is to help instill curiosity and the love for learning in every learner, so that they develop into individuals who contribute to humanity and follow their passions and think for themselves, such that they continue their journey with a purpose and have the confidence to fulfill that purpose. So, what is the difference between learning and teaching? Also, this question is significant and really, it's really important one. The differentiating learning and teaching is very easy. In direct definition, teaching is giving lessons about a particular subject to a group of learners, while learning is gaining knowledge by studying, being taught, and experiencing. So in short, teaching, it's about giving, and learning is about gaining or absorbing, let's say. Absorbing what you offer and what you offer as knowledge, information to learners. So it's about giving and taking, right? Let's talk here about our teaching methods. We have two ways, or we have two methods, traditional versus modern methods of teaching, right? So the traditional method, which is the common one, right, the most popular one in the world today, unfortunately, especially in developing countries, or even in some developed countries, you might see the same traditional method. What is the traditional method of teaching? It's when a teacher directs the students to learn through memorization and recitation. And I call them, those are the intelligence killers, memorization and recitation. The memorization and recitation techniques, thereby not developing their critical thinking, problem or solving and decision-making skills. So the modern method of teaching is based on a critical thinking, problem solving, and decision-making skills. While modern approach to teaching involves a more interacting, student-based of teaching, and here the students learn through group participation and interactive activities. How are we supposed to teach English? We have 6 illuminating ideas for teaching English creatively. We teach through play. And let's say today, today we have to think deeply about this idea, how to teach it through play. And today we have also the gamification method, game-based elements method as well. But we should think how to teach through play. Our learners today want to be engaged and they want to be interested in learning. Our job is to not entertain them, but to turn the lesson into an interesting journey, like creating an interesting atmosphere for them. Let them love learning. Not do like their homework or do this or learn whatever you want to teach them. They do it by force. They do it as a duty. Let's think about it. So teach it through play would solve this problem, because most of us like to have fun while learning, and especially for teenagers. If we keep teaching them as we teach adults, I guess that wouldn't be helpful to them to love learning. So we got to be, as magicians, we got to change the whole methodology of teaching them in our old ways or traditional ways. We got to change that to make a creative atmosphere, an interesting atmosphere, and push them to love learning. And teaching through play, in my opinion, is the most efficient way of changing the learning methodology, or let's say the teaching methodology, into something that learners would accept it and would like it so much. So we could also incorporate students' interests into your lesson, and this is all this is something you gotta think about it, how to do it. Celebrate students' accomplishments and conduct classrooms experiments. Encourage reflective thinking. And the connection, or foster connections between students. This is also would help. So those are 6 illuminating ideas for teaching English creatively. And I'm talking here mainly about teach through play. I'm just giving some insights in my presentation, right? And this is your, let's say, your creativity and your experience would help you to change your classroom to make it a shelter for learners. But let me define classroom as I understand it. Classroom is a safe space where students can practice the skills they will need to apply in the outside world. So let's think about a classroom as a shelter for them, as a safe space where students can practice the skills they will need to apply in the outside world. From that point, we understand that our job as educators is not just to teach them, actually. Also, we are teaching them the right skills to communicate with this world properly. And my last question, who are the best teachers? The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And I hope my presentation has been useful and helpful to you and has given you some insights how to become great teachers. Wish you all the best and thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Mr. El-Addas. He gave us very important details and key points about learning and teaching foreign languages. Actually, language learning is one of the most interesting challenges in life. Melhem El-Addas was trying to take us from the point of who we are to the point of who we can be through some steps. He emphasized awareness as the first step to win this challenge. And Buse, what do you think about the other pills except the red one?
I think they've just expired. It's your turn, Mustafa, and I'm really happy to announce you. Mustafa Ünal is a passionate language learner. He studied 10 languages to discover how languages work and has been studying Turkish, English, Arabic, and French for a long time. He is a passionate teacher of the English language and has been teaching it happily since 24 years. He is interested in literature, philosophy, and social sciences, and these days he has been working on his books. Let's listen to you.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the first ELT conference of Yenidoğu Schools. This is Mustafa Ünal, Head of English Department at Yenidoğu Bahçeşehir campus, and you can see my email, official email here, if you want to contact. Let's start without wasting our time. We are teachers and we talk about approaches, methods, and techniques. We are teachers, which means we are interested in both science and art. Yes, art. And if you want to talk about the science part of it, we have a few questions to make it clear. For example, if you want to learn something, you go and find some books and read them. If you want to learn who did that or this, you go to the library or you go online and find some biographies and read them and learn lots of things. And if you want to learn the place, the location, you can even organize a field trip to that place. And if you want to learn when that thing happened, and you can criticize the traditional ways of teaching and learning and modern ones. And if you want to learn why, you make some comparisons. You compare two things, the previous teaching methods and the modern teaching methods, and you come to a conclusion. This is the science part of it. But we have a second part, which we call practice. Actually, practice is an art. And it's about the question how, or sometimes we call it know-how. And this is what people want to see and learn and do in their classes, in our classes. Okay. Now, we are facing a very rapidly changing technology. Every day you can find something new, and this pushes us to jump from one application to another without being an expert on anything. That's why I choose a topic for myself. It's called the classy side of classical PowerPoint. And what you see from now on is created and prepared by Microsoft PowerPoint, only PowerPoint. And for my students. Yeah, when they see this, they think that this is a storytelling lesson, and they are waiting for each day. I find a video or something interesting for them. Okay, they watched this video. Let's suppose that they watched this video and think about the story. What can it be? What can the teacher tell me today? And they see this page and they get ready for the lesson because the teacher is about to tell a story, a very interesting or strange story or exciting story to them. This was my first lesson about storytelling, and let me do it. Okay. Yeah, boys and girls, today I am going to tell you a story about Hungry Boy. Yeah, I learned it from a little girl. She was only 4 years old when I met her. She was in a village, and I met her, and she told me this story, and now I want to tell it to you. Okay. Yes, once upon a time in a far land, there was a little boy. And one day he woke up and he was hungry. He looked around the house to find something to eat because he was really hungry. And then he found an apple. Oh my God, he didn't find an apple. He found 2 apples. And he tried to eat the first apple, but he couldn't eat it because it was rotten. Oh, poor dog, poor little boy. And he tried to eat the second one. Oh my God, it was rotten too. So he couldn't eat them. He was still hungry. He waited for a while because he was hungry. And again, he looked for something to eat around the house. He went there, he went this place and kitchen and some other places in the house. And then he found a banana. He was lucky, but not only 1 banana. He found 2 bananas and he ate them, and he was not hungry anymore. Okay, so, oh my God, it's a dog. Yes, let's put our picture in a frame. And let's give him a name. Let's call him Boy. Yes. Telling this story, by the way, everything is created here by the PowerPoint program. And I ask them questions, starting from the simple questions to harder ones, step by step. For example, what is the dog's name? I asked this question to a boy, for example, to one of the students in the class, and this was the right answer, but let's suppose that he couldn't answer this question correctly, and we have this. Okay, Ali, I asked you a question about the story, about the name of the dog, and you couldn't answer. So now I have to spin this for you. Yeah, there are different choices here, different options, but let's suppose that it's about singing now, because I don't have now students here. Okay, Ali, now you have to sing a song for us. Okay, Ali, you can start. Oh my God, Ali, 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 oh my God, please, Ali, don't, hello, Ali, Ali, pardon, okay, Ali, thank you, okay, you should be ready for such kinds of things, and then you can, okay, what is the dog's name? His name is Boy. And what did he do when he woke up? The second question. And let's suppose that the student I asked the question couldn't answer this question again correctly. And let's choose this again. Yeah, again, dialect, but of course. Okay, Veli, it's your turn now. You couldn't answer the question, and now we want to watch you. You have to bounce the ball 10 times. Okay, teacher. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, don't tell it to your mom. Okay, bye-bye. So, you can ask each question to the students in the class one by one. And after asking all the questions and getting all the answers, now, sometimes we call this, not sometimes we call this, all the time we call this 21st century skills. Collaboration, cooperation, communication, blah, 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 and organizing things, reorganizing things. Now, you can use one of the effects of PowerPoint here, and you can say, for example, okay, kids, look at the questions now. This is a kind of summary of the story, and now we will organize them in a different way, and you will see how we can make a short story easily. Look. Questions and answers, and put them into a chronological order, and we can create a story like this. And you can make them read the story, and if they want to read, you can let them read one by one if you have enough time for it. And then after doing some exercises on this, you can go to another phase, and you can choose a volunteer in the class, and he or she can tell the story by himself or herself. Okay, let's choose Ayşe. Now I'm clicking on the mouse, and that student starts to tell the story from the beginning to the end. Yeah, once upon a time there was a little boy, blah blah blah, and you can click here. When you click on a button, she or he makes the sentence and do the same thing as you do before. And okay, now they told the story, or he or she told the story. and then you can give homework. Yeah, homework is important. And for example, you may want them to keep a story notebook and write it. Can you imagine? And you may want them to learn the story by heart. That is a good thing for them. And they can learn how to draw the picture. And you can tell them, you may want them to tell it to your parent, to his or her parents, family members, or friends by drawing and asking questions. And you may want them to make a video and send it to you, to the teacher, on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever platform you are using for online teaching and learning. And I want to say that only one thing. Just imagine we are teachers, and imagine that your students have a notebook. They learn a short story each week, and they learn how to draw the picture of the story. So they are making something, not just looking at the screen or telling something to you. Okay, they are doing something using their hands, and by using this kind of activities and platforms or applications, you add not only fun but also kinesthetic factors in it, and you use 21st century skills in your lessons as a role model. I want to say only one thing at the end of my presentation. What you need first and most is your imagination, and use it. Push them gently to use it. Okay, thank you for listening to me today, and I hope you enjoy our first ELT conference. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Wow, Mustafa. I have to say, I really liked the one you did on how to make a short story by reorganizing the text. I thought you were using different applications and then putting them into a PowerPoint file to make a presentation.
Actually, no. What you have just watched in my presentation now was created by the functions of PowerPoint only, from the beginning to the end. And that small video in the corner was also created by the same application. On the other hand, when you finish your presentation, and when you say it's over, you can convert the whole presentation into an MP4 video. And let me make something clear. I'm not trying to glorify the Microsoft company. I am just trying to emphasize that what you need first and most is your imagination.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
So we have, I think, successfully finished the first part. Let's give a 10-minute break for some tea or coffee before having our first guest, Laura Moulton from Cambridge University Press.
That would be great. We will be here again at 3. Bye-bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye for now. It's 3 o'clock now, and Laura Moulton is ready. She is with us now. She works for Cambridge University Press, Turkey, as a teacher, trainer, and educational consultant. She began teaching in early 2000 and completed her Delta in 2005. And so many conferences, workshops, and training sessions in Prague and all around Turkey. She is interested in phonology, learner autonomy, developing critical thinking skills, reading strategies for young learners, using literature in the classroom, CLIL in the EFL classroom, material-free, student-centered teaching, cultural dimensions in EFL. Wow. The stage is yours, Laura, or let's say the screen is yours.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. All right, so thank you very much. Very nice to be here. It's probably, I think, my first online conference, but not my first online training, let's say. And I guess lots of you are very familiar with online teaching now. So today we're going to look at the essentials, the 5 essentials, in my opinion. Okay, this is very opinion based because there are a lot of elements to this, but what I think is important to make a dynamic online lesson. Okay, what I'm not going to do today is talk to you about the actual basics. Okay, because I think you know this, and you've certainly got a lot of experience now. So if you Google, you know, what's important in online teaching, you're going to come up with the same ideas again and again. And of course, most of these are also important for our regular teaching. So you're probably a bit sick of hearing them. Let me just go through what we're not going to talk about today then. Lesson planning. We're not going to talk about how to make an online lesson plan. We're not going to talk about online learning objectives. Of course, it's very important to have an online learning objective, and you know this. We're not going to talk about technology. We're not touching technology. You're all very experienced in this now. And I think we've all found ourselves in a situation where we've had to get to grips with the technology pretty quickly, with hits and misses. But you know, we're getting there, and I'm no expert in this, so I'm definitely not going to talk about that today. Class rules. This is something that's very important. You have it in your regular classrooms, and certainly primary teachers I've spoken to, it's a very big part of how they manage their classes. So transitioning to that online is important, but we're not going to talk about that. Student interaction, and by this I mean getting students to actually speak. Now, this is a problem in our regular classes. I hear it again and again for lots and lots of reasons. So we do a lot of work on this. And of course, getting them to speak online is, you know, quite problematic sometimes. But again, I'm sure you've had lots and lots of advice on this, and you've found techniques to help you with that. We're going to look at collaboration, which will include student interaction, but we're not going to look at getting our students speaking. Not today. Okay, so this is what we're not going to look at. What are we going to look at? Well, we've got 5 other basic things that, as I said, can help you with your regular teaching as well as your online teaching. Okay, and we're going to go through them one by one. The first one is to make your learning and teaching active. Okay, so I'm going to touch on this. We're not going into too much detail because I think it's something that all teachers have been working towards over the last few years, this idea of active learning. Okay, what do we mean by active learning? Well, really, it's about getting your students involved in all aspects of the lesson and all aspects of their own learning. It's about them being actively involved in their own learning, training them to become autonomous learners. When we first hear active learning, we hear the word active. So many people think it means having lots of activities or having your students physically active. Now, that definitely can be a part of active learning, but it's not what it really means. If we have a look at the pictures here, it can mean, let's look at the center picture, it can mean collaboration. And certainly CLIL is something that can help with active learning and collaboration. You're going to have a session that includes CLIL later on. It can be working together in pairs, as we can see these girls here doing, bouncing ideas off each other. If you look at the top left-hand corner, it can be peer teaching. Okay, this is great to get students actively learning and learning about learning as well. But if we look at that picture of the girl on her own reading, that can definitely be active learning. The problem is we can't see what's going on in her head. So we don't know if she's actively engaged or if she's just staring at the page, if she's got problems or not. So by training our students to become active and independent learners, we can feel assured that sometimes we need our students to work on their own, but they are still actively involved. And that also relies on us giving them the right tasks, okay? All right, so all active learning tasks tend to focus on encouraging students to think hard, okay? So this ties in very much with critical thinking skills, creative thinking skills, sort of two areas of our 21st century skills, okay? So being active learners, not passive recipients of knowledge. Now, this is very important for the classroom, and you can see the pictures that I've got here all show students with other students around them, whether they're engaging with them or not. So what we need to really think is take those ideas and think hard for yourselves about how you can integrate active learning into your online lessons. Because the problem with online lessons is we don't have physical interaction with our students. So it's very, very easy to slip into a lecture mode and talk at the computer and talk through them. We did a survey with a lot of our teachers throughout Turkey, and many of them said that, you know, they found that their teacher talking time had gone up. They found that student talking time had gone down. But moreover, they felt like they were on more, you know, that they were just working so hard throughout these lessons. So what we need to think about is giving our students tasks where they actively engage. And this will be addressed in one of our next points, which is collaboration. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because I've got 4 more points and 20 minutes to get through, but just a bit of food for thought there. When you're putting together an activity, really think about how can I help the student to take control of this? My question I always ask myself when putting together activities is, do I need to do this? If it says teacher does this, students do this. Where it says teacher does this, I think, does the teacher need to do it or can the students do it? 9 times out of 10, your answer will be yes, but it might take a little bit of out of the box thinking. Okay, let's move on to our next, real collaboration. Okay, so again, collaboration being one of the 4 C's of 21st century skills, we talk about it a lot, but quite often it's misunderstood. And quite often we might think that collaboration just means working in groups or pairs, okay, which it does, but there is more to it than that, okay? So what do we mean by collaboration? I've got a really nice definition here. It's the situation of 2 or more people working together, so far so good, to create or achieve the same goal. Very, very important that every task you give them has a goal. So this actually ties in quite well with something like task-based learning, where they're not just doing an activity to learn the language or practice the language. They are doing this activity to achieve a goal. They're doing it together, but they have one goal between them. This is what makes a task truly collaborative. Why is collaboration important? Well, let's have a look at this quote, which I really rather like, okay? This is a quote going back quite a long time, and certainly before this crisis when we all had to get online. So in the workplace, it's a very, very sought after skill. It's got digital age implications because working together, working with others, always been important, but now they have to do it in spite of physical distance and time restrictions. This is prior to the COVID outbreak, before the pandemic. We know we're moving to a more digital age, that we're collaborating with people remotely anyway. Now we're having to do it all the time, okay? So collaboration is absolutely key in these areas. Here we can see in the picture some students collaborating remotely. So let's have a little think about it. Now, we know if you're using something like Zoom, one great way of getting your students to collaborate is to put them into groups in breakout rooms. You know, in the classroom, we'd separate them into pairs or groups, get them working on their tasks together. You can go around and monitor, all right? If you have your breakout rooms, you can do something similar. I'm not going to spend time telling you how to do that. It's very easy to do. And there's lots of advice on it on Zoom, on YouTube, everything else. We've got stuff on our website as well that you can access. Yeah, so let's think about what we need to do to have this effective collaboration in your breakout rooms. So very important, as always, just like in the classroom, but probably more so here, very clear instructions before you send them to the breakout rooms, showing it on a shared screen. Just like in the classroom, you would give them your instructions, put them instructions on the board before we give them the task, before we even give them before we put them in groups. Okay, one of the mistakes, and I do this in training sessions, I still fall into this pit of doom, let's say, is that I say, right, because I get so excited about what we're going to do. I'm like, right, we're going to do this. Let's get you into groups, get them into groups. And then I haven't told them what they do. And they all suddenly start working, and then it's really hard to quieten the class down. Okay, we've all been there. So same as in your classrooms, online, instructions, tell them what the task is, what they need to achieve, what the goal is, before you put them in the groups. In other words, before you put them into the breakout rooms. And also, of course, check those instructions. Clarify their understanding of these instructions by removing the shared screen and asking them to tell you what you're going to do. So check those instructions, just like you would in the class. Okay. Now, I said we weren't going to have like online class rules, but it's really worth having something like group rules. This ties into the idea of oracy and discussion rules in groups. Students can actually come up with these rules themselves that cover every time we do a task together, every time we work together. These are the rules we must stick to as a group, okay? So one of these ideas might be, in our groups, each of us has to say something. Each of us has to participate. Each of us has to contribute. One by one. Another rule that's very common is respect each other and don't interrupt. Or if I need to interrupt, find, polite ways to interrupt. Depending on the age of the students that you're dealing with, you can get them involved with creating those rules, and that ties into active learning. If they've created the rules themselves, they are more likely to stick to them. Once they've got these rules, they collaborate much more smoothly, and it's even if you've got, let's say, a mixed ability group, everyone can participate, everyone can contribute meaningfully. You can say that making sure that one of the rules is that the other students listen also encourages active listening, which is a huge part of oracy skills development and also develops active learning. Okay. Nominating or getting your groups to nominate a member of the group who's going to be their representative. Maybe one of them can take notes. Maybe another one can give the feedback. It's absolutely up to you, or up to your group, so that when you go to the groups of feedback to the whole class, they're not all speaking over each other or waiting for someone else to speak. You could have, if you have the same groups each time, you can get them to nominate a different person each time, so they know this is part of their role. This is part of what they have to do as a team, okay? And so they won't feel like very under pressure or shy, because it's just what we do. It becomes normal. And these sort of reflect the way that we work in the real world when we work in teams. So it's preparing them for that as well. Okay. This is very important. Don't forget to set a time limit. We do this in class, sometimes we forget, all right? But when you've got a time limit, it's not so that they do it within this time. That's not what is so important. By setting a time limit, students mentally can project how long they have to spend on it. Okay, it gives them something to work with. If you don't give them a time limit, it'll take them ages to get started. They'll go off on tangents and they won't be motivated. If you set them a realistic time limit, make sure you time it realistically. Don't say, discuss these 5 points and put them in order of which is more important to less important. Make sure you agree as a group. You've got 2 minutes. That's not realistic. Okay, give them a really realistic time limit and allow them enough time. You may change that time limit and give them a bit more. That doesn't matter. but setting the time limit gets them going straight away and helps them to organize themselves and work very well as a group. Okay, meaningful homework. Homework, the big H word. Okay, what do we mean by meaningful homework? Well, homework is something, you know, it's a necessary evil. And I'd say this applies to in the class as well as the online class. But we don't really, you know, want to go back to the whole, let's do a page of the workbook, okay? Or let's do a worksheet for homework. I think something we've seen from things like blended learning and, you know, moving to more online things is the scope that's out there for great homework topics, great homework projects that keep your students engaged. So it's, you know, it's not enough to engage them in the classroom. We need to engage them out of the classroom as well, okay? However, with some homework topics, it actually has a positive impact on the classroom itself and on the following lesson or the previous lesson itself. So let's have a look at some ideas. Of course, projects, whatever age your students are, setting them projects for homework is motivating, it's engaging, it's goal-oriented. It's not just doing exercise 1, 2, 3 of your workbook. You can set collaborative projects. Maybe you've got, especially with older students, perhaps you've got a possibility of them getting in little WhatsApp groups or Zoom groups and working collaboratively on projects. Now, very often homework is set as consolidation of what you've done in that lesson, okay? So you can have a project that consolidates what they've done. However, we can also set homework that is research-based, and that might be research extending the idea of what we've looked at today, extending the topic, going a little bit further, okay? Maybe we've learned about, I don't know, polar bears, and so you might say, okay, choose another animal that lives in harsh environments and research that, so it's a follow-up. But we can also set meaningful homework as a way of flipping our classroom, okay? So we might offer them the chance to do some research on the topic that we're going to be doing in the next lesson. Now, this is where it has a great impact because you're saving a lot of time covering common ground. Now, quite often flipped learning is go and do the grammar first and then we'll do all the great speaking in the class. However, I think you can just get them to do the research, think about the topic, get them engaged in it, come to the class with something to say about the topic or something to show about the topic, and then exploit the grammar from there in the lesson. All right. So I think when you flip your learning and get students to do some research on the topic that's coming up, they're much more likely to be engaged in that lesson. Okay, because they've done a lot of the groundwork themselves, they're bringing stuff to the lesson. Okay, they can record video presentations. We get students to do presentations in class, and this occurred to me a very long time ago, actually, well before this crisis, and when I was certainly not very technologically well equipped, let's say, that a lot of my students are very shy, especially teenagers. They're a little bit shy about presenting in class. And presentation skills are great to develop, but not everybody's going to use them in the real world, okay? Some will love to do it. Look at me, I give presentations, but some of my teacher colleagues, they're just not interested in it, okay? So I don't think it's that important that everybody has to get up in front of the class and give a presentation. And it is very time consuming. But what you can do is get them to record little video presentations that then you can show in class, or they can show to each other in their groups, or you make them available for them to watch each other's presentations as homework. And they can maybe choose 3 or 4 of the presentations that you feel like watching, give feedback on it. Okay. The other beauty of this, it is real life. Very often presentations in class don't feel real world. But if you think about, especially teenagers, young adults, are very used to the idea of making TikTok videos, of uploading YouTube videos, etc. It's something that we do now, DIY videos, and we upload them for others to watch. They're very comfortable with that. They can hold the phone in front of them or dance in front of their screen or what have you, and they're not shy the way old people like me might be, all right? So it's a real world thing. And even if they're not the kind of student that would be inclined to make videos and upload them, they have certainly watched a whole bunch of them. And these can range from presentations on a topic, academic presentations, or how-to videos. And this is great for our younger learners, little how-to videos. My friend has 2 daughters who are, oh, I don't know, how, like 4th and 5th grade now. When they were 2nd and 3rd grade, their favorite thing to do was to watch these how-to videos. They were how-to videos on makeup, how-to videos on crafts particularly. They were addicted to them. So these are great actually for our primary students. They can do how-to videos at home, how to make a cake, how to do this. Very short videos, and they're certainly going to enjoy doing it. This could, of course, involve the whole family. So if you can get the family involved, this is a great homeschool connection. It's a great way of keeping the parents involved and letting the parents see how much, how, and why the students are learning what they're learning. And it's a perfect opportunity to differentiate homework. Okay, I've done a lot of stuff on differentiation. Teachers are very interested. It's something I think that's really important, particularly in Turkey. So I think once we differentiate the homework, which is so easy to do because they can choose their own topics based around a common theme, and they can go away and research different things or do slightly different projects based on their interests, what they're comfortable with in terms of their language and skills, etc., etc. So it naturally lends itself to this. Okay, next one is called Be You. Well, who else are you? Who else could you be? Well, you could be this. Now, we've been talking about digital technology in education since, let's say, the 1950s at least. This is a very old picture, I think from the early 1960s, that looks ahead to what life might be like in the year 2000. The year 2000 was 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, right. Yeah, we've always imagined that we would have robot teachers or, you know, remote learning, computer-assisted learning, etc. So this has been the perfect opportunity for you to get involved with that and become part of the future. But it isn't like this, is it? Or is it? There's a temptation when we're sitting behind a computer, looking into a screen, that we are teaching and lecturing to a screen and forgetting about the little human beings behind it. So this is not the model we want, is it? We want to be ourselves. And it's really hard. Look at me, I'm training you guys. I can't see your faces. I can't interact with you. I can't read your body language. You can't read my body language. It's very, very difficult. And yet, of course, we naturally respond much better to human beings than we do to robots or virtual teachers. So we need to be ourselves as much as we can. How can we be you? Be a human being. Okay, that's very important. So when you're teaching online, try to just remember how you are, what you're really like in the classroom. Okay, it's quite difficult for me because when I'm in the classroom, I move around a lot, and you can see I'm moving my arms around ever such a lot now. And don't think you have to read from a script. Don't think you have to get everything perfect, you know. Even when I was doing some recorded webinars, I'd go back and do, oh, I kept hesitating there. And I thought, no, that's natural. It's okay to hesitate. It's okay to, you know, do what I'm doing now, think of the next thing to say. What am I going to say? Oh, it's this. That's human. That's what we do in the classroom. Okay. So try and be as natural as you can. It's very unnatural circumstances, but we're getting more used to it now, and we're feeling a little less shy in front of the camera, let's say. Be enthusiastic. That's the other thing. You walk into a classroom, the little faces are there, or the big faces, depending on the age you're teaching. Even if we've had a really hard day, somehow we get energy from that, don't we? That's more difficult when we're in front of a computer, even if we can see, you know, little thumbnails of their faces. But you need to have that enthusiasm. You know, if you go in and go, all right, today we're going to do da, da, da. I've walked into a classroom to some of my older learners and gone, wow, guess what we're doing today? You're not going to believe it. It's going to be so exciting. And they're like, oh, what is it, teacher? What is that? We're going to do relative clauses. And they went, yay! What? Oh, okay. But I got the energy up. I hate teaching relative clauses, but I had to gear myself up to do it and fake it. Fake it till you make it. Be enthusiastic, okay? Be human. Use your body language. Use your body language as much as we can. So much communication is done through body language, and we need to try and utilize that. So don't be afraid to move around, because when you're doing that, you're expressing yourself. If I sit here like this with my hands, you know, under my legs and just try and talk to you like this, my voice starts to go a bit flat. When I raise my hands and I start, you know, showing some enthusiasm, I'm actually communicating better with you. I think that's up to you to judge, which comes to our next thing. Be the same teacher you are in the classroom, okay? As much as you possibly can. That's really hard. I talked about body language. Let's think about eye contact, okay? I'm trying to make eye contact now by looking into my camera. It's really weird because part of me wants to look at the screen, but that's not normal either. Normally I'd be looking at you, okay? So really think about this. It's very, very hard. We naturally make eye contact with students in the classroom. We naturally do it. But here is where we actually have to fake it. I was going to show you something. All right, this is what your students see, okay? What am I looking at? Well, I'm not looking away. I'm not being rude. I'm actually looking probably at either my notes or the material or one of the students. I'm looking at one of the students. I'm looking at a picture of one of the students, okay? And that's what we're inclined to do. When we're talking to someone, we will look at them. So I'm looking at one of the students in my class right now, and that's fine for me, but it's not fine for them, because as far as they're concerned, I'm not looking at them, all right? Still not looking at them. I'm not very engaged, do I? Very serious. I wouldn't want to talk to that person. Ah, okay. So now I've looked away from the person, I'm looking into the camera, and now I'm looking at everybody. Of course I'm not. It's quite uncomfortable for me to do that. It's quite unnatural. I want to look into their eyes. But it's much more important that they can see you looking into their eyes than you look at them, okay? So try and do this. Now, you can't do that throughout the whole lesson. I'm trying to do it now because I'm not reading anything and I can't see anybody, so it's easy. But when you've got all your students there and your materials there, you can't do it all the time. But what you can do is just remind yourself every now and then, and you can practice this. Look up and smile. You can even take your glasses off and smile, but you might need to put them back on to see what's going on the next slide, okay? So don't stare them out, don't look at the camera the whole lesson, but just remember to do it from time to time, because the power of eye contact as a humanizer, as a way of communicating, reaching people socially and emotionally is so powerful. It's very, very important. Okay. 3 minutes left, I think. The last one is my favorite one. I'm a big fan of taking risks, okay? Maybe not to that extent, but I think being a risk taker is very important. Now, this is about getting your students to take risks and also about you taking risks. We're in a whole new world now. This is the perfect opportunity to take risks. It's a safe place to take risks, okay? Let's have a look at something I found. It's really, really useful. So there was a study done on the risk averse and risk takers, okay? So those who are risk adverse have short-term concerns. They have a fear of failure. There's a culture of routine and control. Now, of course, we need some routine and control. I'm not saying go either one way or the other. Some of these risk averse things are quite good ideas. We do need to be safe. So, you know, we need some kind of routine, but this idea of everything is routine, everything is controlled. This, remember, that takes us away from that idea of active learning, yeah? So they're not going to be active learners if they're risk averse, if they're afraid of making a mistake or trying something new. Apprehension, anxiety makes them nervous. That's not a positive feeling. And complacency. And for those of you teaching, you know, teenagers, that, oof, yeah, don't be bothered, you know, this is one way of getting over that. For those who are risk takers, they have much longer term concerns. We've got longer term goals. Okay, that keeps us motivated, keeps us going when things are difficult. They can see opportunities, grasp opportunities, envision opportunities. They are existing in a culture of creativity, one of the 4 C's, and innovation. They have confidence, and we know confidence is the key to success, in English learning, and they seek learning and growth. So going back to that active learning, risk takers seek learning and growth on their own. They are autonomous learners who continue to learn. It's a wonderful skill, okay? So we need to bring elements of risks into the classroom. Now, I think you're going to have a session on gamification later, and gamification, games are an area, a place where we are able to take risks in a safe place. We are able to fail in a fun way, in a safe way. So bringing this into your lesson actually helps your students to begin to feel okay about taking a few risks. And that can be through the activities. It can be through giving them choice in the activities they do, possibly for homework, because given choice, making decisions is seen as a risk. You know, it can be all sorts of things. Ask them to think outside of the box, okay? As a teacher, it's very important that you practice what you preach. So I'm asking you to take risks as well, all right? Now, before this crisis hit, I doubt any of us thought that we'd be online teaching or online training all the time, and some of us might have thought that was a bit of a risk, but now we've all done it. This is the perfect opportunity to try out new things, okay? Doesn't matter if you fail, you learn from it and try something else. So risk taking is my last idea, and I hope this has been useful for you. Have fun, take care, and thank you very much.
Thanks to Billy and Laura, we've learned such inspiring ideas to make our online lessons more active and effective. And let's be honest, I think we've all been through that point where we start questioning ourselves about whether we're doing what we are right or wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think about the presentation Laura made?
What can I say more? I really liked it. She's an expert and knows how to do things in learning and teaching. Thanks a lot. And
my pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Buse, now I want to ask you a question about this presentation. How can we apply, do you think, how can we apply what we have learned in our lessons?
Good question. I think you will emphasize the practice we carry out.
Yeah, right. Yes, but there is something else.
Let me think for a while. Observing our colleagues.
You are great. Absolutely right. Seeing someone, observing one of our colleagues while putting what she or he learned and knows into practice is a great experience for us.
I couldn't agree more. Whose turn is it now, Mustafa?
John Barth.
Yes, John Barth from English Express Publishing. John has been teaching since 1993. He has a wide experience of both a teacher and administrator in both Canada and Turkey. Throughout his teaching career, he has been continuously involved in teacher training initiatives, working as a coordinator, mentor, and program developer. He now serves as the Director of Academic Services, Senior Teacher Trainer, and Program Consultant at English Company for school organizations of all types across Turkey. He proudly presents dozens of seminars and workshops annually at national and regional ELT conferences on behalf of his partners, Express Education, Collins Education, and Trinity College London. Hey, John, we are waiting for your speech in excitement.
All right, that sounds good. I hope everybody can see me. Let's just double check on this. I'd like to just introduce myself a little bit. I think I've worked with Yenidoğu Schools for quite some time, and I'm actually very, very proud of the relationship that we've had over the years. So number one, I'd like to be able to thank everybody at Yenidoğu for making this event possible. It has been actually absolutely tremendous what's been happening here today. So thank you again very much for all the stuff that you've been helping out with. What I'd like to do today, though, is, well, like everybody else, we're going to do a little bit of, I say, professional learning. Enjoy our time together and hopefully pull some great information back. I'd like to just mention that some of the points that I'm going to talk about today were also brought up, in fact, earlier on. This idea from Mustafa Bey, for example, his presentation about the classic style of PowerPoint being a really effective way to bring out, how you say, activities and energy and really support learning in the classroom. This is perfect. It's the idea for me, what I took away from Mustafa's presentation mostly was the need and the desire for us to always be very, very creative. Be creative and enjoy. So if we can do this, the best part for this is to look inside of ourselves and always think, let's be creative as teachers, especially in these really, really difficult, trying times with the COVID-19 virus around us, our push onto the online medium. We don't have certainty about next year. We don't know what it's going to look like exactly. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, we have really learned a lot in the last, let's say, last few months, making that professional transition. For a lot of us, it hasn't been very easy. So given that, Mustafa, thank you for really highlighting that, the need for creativity. Laura brought up this idea about active learning. Those of you who know me from prior conferences or just even personally as friends and colleagues, you know that I'm a very active, almost a little bit crazy kind of teacher sometimes. I go in the classroom and I want to see that learning. I want to feel the learning. I want to celebrate. And I want those kids to sort of feel the same way that I do. And I'm sure most of you are going to be the same way as I am. Maybe not as crazy sometimes, but definitely looking for our students to really want to be active. And as Laura mentioned, the idea about active learning is sometimes misconstrued. And that the primary idea about engagement, whether it's through collaboration, sharing, even that beautiful picture of the student looking at the book, engagement. We want our students to be able to reach in and share with that learning, because what we're trying to do for them is create lifelong learners, not just the present continuous tense, for example. So the fact that we have an opportunity for creativity, opportunity for active learning, and I'll also say this, Laura also touched upon a very key point, and that's this idea about the flipped classroom. Now, I don't want to get into a discussion of what the flipped classroom is and so on and so forth, because that's the theoretical that, quite frankly, most of us already know. What I like to do is just simplify it, dumb it down if I could, because flipped classroom has been in use. It's not a, how you say, it's not a 21st century skill aspect. It's not something that's brand new on our horizon. We have had flipped classrooms happening across the world for decades. I myself, when I was in school myself, I had the same thing happening where my teachers were challenging us by throwing content at us that we had to, how do you say, negotiate and understand, and then return to that classroom ready to perform and ready to do things. So the thing for me about flipped classroom principles is this idea about gaining the interest and building that motivation within the kids through the preparation and the materials that we're going to be sending out to them. We need to be able to say, this is meaningful, this is important, this is part of your life, and this is useful. And have them take ownership of this. So the idea about taking that interest and motivation and then bringing that through into this idea about responsibility. If the students have a distance, if they're not engaged, they're not going to bring that responsibility or ownership into the task, into the learning. That's the passive aspect that we're trying to avoid. And we see that often enough, even in our traditional four-wall classroom. When we give students responsibility, amazing things can happen. So the challenge is to inspire them, provide them with materials that can grab. I know, we have the course books, we have this, that, but there's always ways for us to expand or add or find a twist or even ask one of those incredibly important guiding questions. And through that small aspect, it can bring life to that lesson. But lastly, of course, for me, it's this idea about what we're going to do when they come back to us. It's about being doable. For me, it's always about success. Sending something home for them to digest, chew over in their mind, and work through to understand and process, but it should result in a doable activity, a doable skills performance of some kind at some point. So, like I say, I don't want to get too deep into the flipped classroom theory and ideas, but what I do want to share with you is the fact of how easy it is to put this into practice in your classroom. I'm showing you a link right now, and I really do recommend take little screenshots along the way through the presentation, because there will be a lot of videos with links right there for you, and you can investigate them yourself later on if you want to. But Edutopia, some of you know this website, or actually the foundation, and it's a truly wonderful, rich resource for teachers, educators. And in there, this link, it gives a really nice introductory, fresh take, but simple, into the flipped classroom idea. And why am I talking about flipped classrooms? Because some of you know I've got 2 daughters. They are they're in Canada right now, in university. And of course, the COVID problem has shut down schools across all of Canada. They're slowly starting to reopen again after a couple months. But my university, lovely, wonderful daughters, big and beautiful and bad, they suddenly found themselves without examinations, final examinations in a classroom setting, no more lectures in theater halls and so on and so forth. They were flipped automatically into an online scenario, just like we were, and they hated it. So I got 2 brilliant girls that were saying back to me all the time, Dad, this is boring. Dad, this is terrible. So if you think about it, it's affecting all parts of our society. And this idea about the flipped presentations are big, 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 big. And we have to sort of look at this. So like I say, principles, let the principles guide you. So just to sort of throw open the box a little bit to maybe show you just how far we can kind of go. The first thing I want to do is actually show you a little online baking activity. And it's actually kind of fun, but it's incredibly, incredibly rich with a lot of really wonderful ideas. All right. Imagine we watch, these TV shows on Digiturk all the time, and we watch these cooking shows. They're kind of like, really exciting in a passive way, sitting on the couch, drinking our chai or our coffee, but we love watching this. So imagine bringing that sort of interest into the classroom, the online classroom, because funny enough, our students are now working at home. So it's about finding a recipe and also being prepared. It's about finding what you need and looking at what's going to be requiring and being able to assign and send that home through the, the communication links that we have with all of our parents and families right now. So in this regard, I want to demonstrate this really quickly for you. And it's actually really quite simple. Now, some of you are going to say this idea about baking and no, hang on. We're not going to burn down the house. But again, using that flipped principle, here's a link as an example of a way of presenting content, not for them to do and actually make at home, but actually to load up first and say, all right, children, watch this video, and I want you to identify or answer X, Y, Z questions, whether it's language, whether it's process, it could be anything, even that personal response. Basic comprehension even. Let me play a little bit of that video for you.
Full-time kid with Maya. Hi, I'm Maya. Today, I'm going to show you how to make super easy no-bake cookies. Here's what you'll need. A cookie tray, wax paper, 3 cups of oats, 1½ cups of sugar, 4 teaspoons of cocoa, 1/2 cup of peanut butter, and 1/2 cup of butter. Now, I'm going to put the butter, cocoa, and your sugar into a saucepan. And mix until it melts. Chocolatey. Now put the peanut butter in the chocolate mixture.
We're going to leave it at that for right now. But I want you to understand that what we're doing is we're watching an authentic video with good language, good expression, easy to follow, and even with really good subtitles attached to it. Now, let's break it down a little bit. For example, let's just focus on the vocabulary. I've pulled out words from the actual recipe, a recipe that I find or that I have, and I'm going to actually give this out to the kids prior to actually doing the activity. Now, if you look at this, I broke it down into 4 different categories. And think about it, like scan through those and tell me if you can identify, like, what's the common denominator? What is the thing, the concept, or maybe a grammatical or vocabulary, lexical set? What separates or makes them distinct from one another? It's a quick scan, but you can sort of get an idea of how I'm gathering them. So as part of my, my flipped learning approach, the principle I want is for them to look at that video, but I'm going to attach with them a little bit of information to help them focus. So when they watch it, they can answer questions. Just to illustrate, we have nouns and verbs and even those specialized words that we always see in our course books that, it's kind of an awkward word or a strange word, but it's a word we need for the context of that particular reading. So we're teaching them about associative vocabulary at the same time. How does it work inside of the recipe? Well, let's show you. That's the recipe. And I'm not kidding you. Like they're really quite good and very easy to make. Where are the oats, salt, and honey? There it is. This is your instructions. I want you to imagine now. Now this is moving away from the video. We're now coming back into the classroom. Children, we're going to have a lesson inside of the kitchen today or on the kitchen table. The homework was get all the ingredients together, set them out. Mom can help you, of course, but you're going to do something special. If you want, you could send the instructions forward in English and let them read through it beforehand. But you know what? How about this? If you have already worked through some language, you could actually do this through just a spoken direction using oral instructions and listening skills on their side. So inside, you can see how I've highlighted all the vocabulary words, or I've highlighted these vocabulary words, the imperatives. And of course, also, we've got the specialized words. Now, the funny thing is, there is a very limited amount of language inside of a recipe, very limited. And yet, look how rich it is. So there's a lot of teaching that we can do inside of this, a lot of exposure to good language, but contextual, real life, and authentic. What happens from this? Like I say, everybody, you can find a simple recipe. It doesn't have to be this one about chocolate and so on and so forth. But notice what you do. You take that recipe, you assign that homework and prep up those questions. Give that attention to vocabulary, even do some drills beforehand about following your oral instructions on something entirely different, because instructions matter. How they listen and how they respond online as you're watching them is going to be important. And the nice thing is, you will be able to have comprehension checks happening in real time. If you're brave, model it with them. Now you're sort of the chef of your own cooking show, in a sense, and you're going to be modeling, and they're going to be having their comprehension check again happening through the visual cue, sort of like how we have a picture on the Legesse examination that helps us double check and make sure that our A, B, C, or D is the right answer. Another option, you can post that recipe, like I say, later on, or even during the activity, and they can refer to the text, or you can post the text into the chat as you're going through the online lesson. You will notice that down on the bottom, there is a no melt option for this particular recipe because, yeah, sometimes we don't want them to be working on the stove. So this is really an all age activity. So you replace the melted chocolate with Nutella, and we all know how much we like that. The best part is we have something now, an activity where the teachers are giving some instruction. We're exercising that language. We're learning words. We're following instructions. We got the listening skills. We've got all sorts of comprehension checks happening, and mom and dad are watching. And at the end of it, they're even eating. They know that their children are communicating and understanding in such a powerful way. And there are different versions of this. I love the fact that we can really get active with hands, but very much active with engagement. That's the thing. A second activity for us, as I look at, we have about 15 minutes left here. The second activity I want to share with you is called the hat. The paper hat. Now, it can actually start off with an origami sort of session. And now if we bring that flipped principle back in, what we're looking at now is about sending home content to get them engaged, to get them aware. So, for example, you can find videos. So here is a video that is going to demonstrate how to make a paper hat. And it's a very simple procedure. It really is. Now, if you do want to, you can also send home a model on a piece of paper, send the file across. And that will give us a visual instruction to follow. Frankly, I think the video is actually much easier in many ways for those comprehension checks. But either way, what we have is that test going home first of listen, watch, understand, and the demonstration of your comprehension is at the end of it, you're going to have a hat. Now, some of you are going to say that maybe that hat is a little bit simple. All right, let's make it a little bit more tough. So there's another activity, another video that's coming up, and you can see how the hat has become a much more of a construction rather than a constant folding. So again, we have a variety of levels of students that can be doing this activity, which also is very, very nice. And at the end of this, now, of course, the question is, well, is the whole point just making the hat? No. The point of it is what we do with the hat. And that's here. When you have this hat, the hat is going to be, how do you say, it's going to be a place for us to put our imagination, to engage. So for example, let's explore character or adjectives of character. For example, this is my hat and who am I? I am this and I am that. And they can decorate that hat however they want to. Tenses, they can practice language. How did I get my hat? I'm somebody and I found it under a bus bench. I bought it at Migros. What am I going to do with my hat? Well, I'm going to go sailing. I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to go on an adventure. We have a chance to build now with this little prop. Remember, it's not the prop. The prop is what is going to allow them to do something. And that prop is going to be important because literally it's going to sit right on their head. Simple as that. So because we have this simple hat becoming a catalyst, becoming a spark of activity, what we can do with it is really up to us. And now we're engaging them in terms of speaking, engaging them with thinking and personalization. The idea that Laura mentioned, differentiation. We don't need the same answer. We need you to come up with your answer. And it's a wonderful way of looking at things. So in terms of the flipped learning process, again, yes, the comprehension checks are built in. The engagement is going to be there. And busy hands means usually busy minds. And that's one of the nice parts. We've got another one, a third activity I'd like to show you. This idea about opinions and debates. It's probably the Turkish student's worst nightmare. Hocam, yeah, I have to speak. I don't want to speak. Don't make me speak. Please don't make me speak. Okay, we understand. We understand. But I want to show you that using that flipped classroom principle again, sparking their imaginations, having them think about a topic appropriately, according to level and expectation of the learner, but then returning back and being able to do things with it. I've put on the screen, for example, 3 sort of sets of questions. What is COVID-19? Or, if Turkey continues social distancing, how will it affect my life at school in the autumn? Nobody knows. What a great conditional this is. During the summer, we don't even know this. What about social distancing? Has it gone too far? I like that expression. Has it gone too far? How should we get back to normal? We hear this. We hear it in the media. We see it with the protests. We're listening because we're all aware. So I took this topic just to illustrate how we can build this into our highly engaged classroom. You'll also notice I'm bringing a little bit of bloom into this with your lower order thinking and your higher order thinking skills. So in that regard, what we're looking at right now is sort of structuring the expected response, and the expected quality of response, depending, of course, on an A1 level learner, an A2, a B1, a B2 level learner. So it doesn't necessarily matter about age. It does matter, however, about expectation of response. So for example, you can see, what is COVID-19? This is a really classic recall and understand. It's about explaining and using. It's got core vocabulary that we're going to be recycling. It is a disease. There is a pandemic. We can teach that vocabulary and have them practice and produce it, but really on let's say, a bit more of a basic level. However, the second one, about if Turkey continues social distancing, now we have to start applying. We're moving into critical thinking now, folks. And I love the fact that this is a big push lately in ELT, because quite frankly, I don't think we do enough of this. We tend to focus on the lower order skills far too much. We tend to focus a little bit more on language and mechanical and, let's say, lexical. But we also forget sometimes that our students are vibrant and really, 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 how you say, intelligent thinkers. And they're responsive to their environment. So asking them to apply and analyze, like, what's it going to be? If it's going to be this way, how's it going to look? Tell us. Well, it's going to have this. We are going to have big plastic bubbles all over our head. We will not be able to touch anybody in the hallways. We will have a 3-kilometer lineup going into the school from the service buses. They can imagine these things, but look at the language that they're going to use. Future tenses and conditionals and all sorts of things, but it's personal. I like the fact that it becomes personal. Then, of course, this idea about the idioms coming in. Notice how we're taking another step up, but we're also going up on Bloom. Evaluations, arguments, even, like I say at the title, debating. Break them out into breakout rooms. All right, your pros, your cons, your positive, your negative. You guys get ready. Start talking to each other. Build up your argument. What language are you going to use? You must. You should. What about the grammar points? What about the critical aspects you want to bring in? So you have a chance with this topic just to play with this. So I want to then take you to sort of 3 different examples of what these videos might look like from a low level to a high. I'll just play for maybe about a half a minute to a minute of each one, so you can listen to the language and see what the structure is. Because again, YouTube, what a wonderful resource for us. And kids are living on this thing all the time. Here's the first video.
Hi kids, I want to tell you about something that is happening all around the world right now. It is the reason that you see a lot of people wearing masks over their faces. Outside on the street, there is an illness, or what we call a virus. It makes people cough and feel sick, but if nobody is outside to catch it, the virus disappears. A virus is a tiny thing, so small that you can't see it with your eyes, only with special tools. The virus can get into our bodies and make us sick if someone coughs or sneezes near us, or if we touch something that a sick person touched.
I'll pause that one there. Now, let me also remind you that as a teacher, as the creative teacher that we're talking about, as we heard earlier, part of our creativity will be the lesson planning. As Laura mentioned, we don't need to talk about the principles and the structure of a lesson plan. But what the important word in that title, lesson plan, it's not lesson. The important word is plan. So you spend a little bit of time looking for the right video. You spend a little bit of time preparing that correct handout. You take a little bit of time to just think about how is my lesson going to progress? Because to choose the right level of video for the right level of learner, or even the right age level, is a critical decision. Because that moment of engagement can actually bloom, or it can crash if you've chosen the wrong type of input. So we have to be careful about those decisions. So of course, planning is critical. Here's the second video, and you'll see it's a very different approach. But again, notice subtitles.
You're hearing a lot about the coronavirus right now. This is an important question that needs answering. What is social distancing? Social distancing means staying away from others. It helps keep the coronavirus and any other virus from spreading. So what does social distancing actually look like? Well, you can bet that high-fiving, hugging, and fist-bumping your friends are off the table. What about elbow taps? Better. And toe taps? Even better. But ideally, you're gonna wanna stay 1 meter away from everyone. So maybe bowing is the way to go. It's really hard to stay that far away from people, especially in large crowds. So that's why schools are shutting down, and organizations like the NBA and NHL have suspended their seasons.
I'm going to pause it there. Now you will notice that the subtitles did not appear inside the video. Because of a middle level, let's say, audience of our children, I have the choice then to tell them, look, there is the auto subtitle option in YouTube. And remember, we have to always tell our students this. Take advantage of that. use those auto-generated English subtitles to help make that. And it's great because sometimes they're terrible. Sometimes they're awful. And the students will come back to you saying, Hocam ya, that was it. They didn't match. They didn't make any sense. Good. They're processing and they're trying to make sense and they're trying to understand. In fact, you can say, find examples for me, bring them back to me. That's a wonderful way of having them engage with the language of the actual video itself. The third video, of course, we're going to move up a little bit higher now. Not just in terms of language, but also in terms of age and context. This is, let's say, for maybe the lycée level.
By now, schools have been shuttered for weeks across the country. It can be hard on parents to help orchestrate remote learning, and Shelter in Place presents its own challenges for young people. The NewsHour Student Reporting Labs, that's our journalism training program for high school students, shares some ways that teenagers are coping in the age of quarantine.
Me and many other Americans have been living on lockdown, and during this time, we've been committing ourselves to a pretty strict routine of waking up at a reasonable time, running so I get some vitamin D, eating, doing homework, eating again, doing more homework.
I have learned to engage with my parents a little bit more, playing Scrabble and binge watching television shows.
During this whole time, my teachers have been really flexible, especially with the amount of work they give. Honestly, I miss the classroom atmosphere. It's sometimes hard to stay motivated when you're at home with all of these other distractions around you.
This is I'll cut it right there too. So what's really authentic here is the voice of the actual students. So the idea about the video sources, it's big. When we want to use that flipped classroom methodology, the principles of it, we do have to do that bit of planning. I hope I've made that point clear for you. The last one I want to go through in the last 3 minutes here really quickly is really simple. It's a little bit of a pull from Reader's Theater. And what I like about this is that it's about emphasizing, again, those speaking skills, which we can then later have them really digest and then bring back to us in terms of performance. This is a story, and I found one, of course, with the video content, but this one's different. It's not an animated video. We miss that, actually, a lot in ELT. We expect to see animations happening a lot. Notice the subject matter is STEM related, and our heroine is a young girl. We'll listen for a little bit, please.
Rosie Revere, Engineer, by Andrea Beatty. Illustrated by David Roberts. Creatively read by Miss Jill. This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lilla Greer's class at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved.
And she made a lot of them. Now, notice what we've done. We send that video home for them to see, like, how do you understand? Give me 3 things you saw from the video that you were interested in or that you noticed. You give them a pre-task to go with that video so they can go through and learn about the story and learn about the book. But when they come back in the classroom, what we're going to do is flip it around a little bit now. They're not worried about, did you understand the story completely? We can do a quick review of this. But now we're going to focus on the speaking, the sound. So notice how the rhyming in that story allowed us to do the flow. And we get to now move into a listen and repeat context, which quite frankly, we have in a lot of our course books. Always listen and repeat choral practice, moving into individual practice. Always never put them on the spot and make them read out loud for their peers until they're good and ready and practiced, just like we would want at the same time. Now you can do this with a play script or a dialogue and make a mini performance, and then, like I say, put them into breakout rooms, and they can even practice in small groups together if you want them to do this. But here's like another example from a course book of a great way how even a story can just come up with different character voices, and they can listen and try to mimic or listen and even do better. I'll play it for a little bit for you.
Let's read. Dorothy and her dog Toto were walking on the yellow brick road. They were passing through fields and found a scarecrow near the road.
Hello,
said the Scarecrow. "Oh," said Dorothy, "you can talk,"
Yes, I can talk,
said the Scarecrow, annoyed.
but I cannot move. Can you help me down from this pole?
Yes, of course. Dorothy helped the Scarecrow down from the pole.
Where are you going?
He asked.
We'll play it right there. I hope I've given you some inspiration. We have such a short amount of time, but using a variety of different resources, YouTube, audio tracks from our course books, how we can play with things to just put something in their hands first. That's the flipped mentality. Give them something to chew on, give them something to think about, give them something to work with and digest. And then from there, what they can then do is create that performance with you in the online classroom, whether it's doing a debate, prepping for it, whether it's actually listening and practicing with dramatic lines, because when that expression of "oh" comes up, "oh," they say, that's beautiful. And we want our students to be able to do this. Shake up the routine, as it says, shake up that routine and enjoy. Because quite frankly, what you've got here inside of this whole thing is a wonderful opportunity to do some very different things. I wish you all a very good year, and Yenidoğu, as always, thank you very much. I'm just gonna have a little bite. And I want to say, I hope everyone has a really good meeting after this and enjoys. All of you, take good care.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, we'd like to thank John for his share as well. It's been very inspiring.
Yes, of course. And let me tell you something. Motivation has been one of the most essential parts of learning and teaching, of course, in all ages. But now, in the new world during and after COVID-19, especially these days, it's gained the attention it really deserved, I think. On the other hand, I always notice that a great number of people misunderstand it. They think motivation is just a wish. It's not just a wish, but also a factor which pushes you to move. For example, I want to learn English is a fake motivation. I want to learn English and I study 1 hour every day is the real one.
Yes, Mustafa, you're absolutely right. Almost everyone wants to learn, which is a natural instinct, but only a few of them get to move. So we finished the second part. I hope everybody is happy with how things are progressing up till now. We have a 10-minute break again. This will be the last one. So I hope you guys enjoy the last 10 minutes of the break. And please remember to check your chat box from time to time whether you get the link or not, because only those who fill out the form can get their certificate.
Yeah, we will be here at 4:20, I think, right?
Yep, 4:20.
Yeah.
We'll
okay, bye-bye for now. Yeah, bye-bye for now again. Hello, everyone. We are back again. Whose turn is it now, Buse?
Let's give it up to Tony Gurr.
Okay, Tony Gurr. Welcome, Tony. We are growing impatient to see you and listen to you after Buse gives some information about you and your career. Yes, Buse, we are listening to you.
Dr. Tony Gurr, after having almost all qualifications about learning and teaching, he has recently completed his doctoral studies with the University of Vienna. He's passionate about all forms of student, teacher, and institutional learning. He has 33 years of experience.
Buse, tell me, how old are you?
No.
Buse, please.
Okay, well, if you insist, a little more than the half of that number.
Oh my God, a little more than the half of that 33. Okay, a very clever answer. And you see how lucky we are. And we are listening to someone who spent 33 years in learning and teaching in many different countries.
Oh, yes, we are. He draws on his wide range of hands-on experience in schools, colleges, and higher education institutions in the UK, Middle East, the US, Australia, and Turkey. A popular workshop facilitator and keynote presenter, Tony is well known for his creative and thought-provoking sessions with educators and trainee teachers. Dr. Tony Gur, we are ready to listen to you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to hear from you. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me for today's session.
Our pleasure.
Okay. Well, look, there's what we've got just about 500 people. You've just had a break, so I think I need to give you all some colonia. You know, just so you get freshened up and ready. Okay, everybody ready? Just slap it on your face a little bit so you're all fresh and see how we go. Because I'm welcoming you to my study here. You can see this is my little study. Corona's had a big impact on us. You know, normally we do these sessions face to face. But I'm inviting you to my home, and this is where you get the colonia. Yeah, a bit more, yes. Oh, I can see a couple more people coming in now. Don't forget your colonia. Wonderful, yeah. All right. Now, we haven't got a lot of time, unfortunately. I wish we had more time. But what we will be doing, as far as I understand, this will be recorded. And what I will do is I will send you all the notes that I use as well, all my slides, so that you can see the video and you can see the slides together. So let's kick off. I'm just going to share my slides with you. If I can just get these. Can everybody see them? Yeah, just a second. Okay, is everybody able to see all of those now? All right, now if you look, it's a terrible title. Most people are looking at it, what the hell is he going to talk about here? Well, the focus is clearly on teachers and learners. And that word there, reimagineering. Now, lots of people are, Tony, that's not a real word. It is. It's in the dictionary now. But you can see how it puts together imagining and engineering, that idea of design and then doing it again. In the light of what we're still going through, this idea of the COVID emergency as well. So what I'll be doing is throwing a little bit of light, because the theme of the conference is related to inspirational teachers, as well as effective teachers. I think that's important. I think it's important to be both inspirational and effective at the same time, regardless of which context we're in. Yeah. So I'll be looking at two of those things. Now, some of you, well, probably a lot of you, there's 500 of you, probably haven't seen or met me before. My name's Tony. Now, if you're interested in following me, here's a picture of my back, just in case you see me on the street. If you see that, just follow me. Yeah. Sorry, that's naughty. I said we haven't got enough time. Let's go on. Well, look, what I was saying before, essentially, I'm going to be having a look at a comparison, a battle, if you will. This idea of 21st century learning that we've been talking about for 20 years. I mean, it's 2020 now. In fact, we were talking about it before that. A lot of the discussion began in 1995. And I know some of you weren't born 25 years ago. Well, you certainly weren't teachers. And having a look at a comparison with the impact of the 21st century pandemic that we've been sort of facing, in terms of how inspirational they have been, or how effective they have been in terms of helping us reimagine ourselves. Yeah. Imagineering, as I sort of said before, with a hope of maybe answering this question, you know, which process has been more inspirational and effective? Remember, I said effectiveness is important. The promise of 21st century learning, yeah, which we've had for 20 years, or the COVID experiment. Now, remember, it is very much an experiment. Most of us have only been going through it for 3 months, if you will. So the idea is comparing these two areas, themes, topics, ideas, whatever we want to sort of call them. I've described them here as processes. Let's start first with the idea of 21st century learning. Now, this phrase has been thrown around for the last 20 years or 25 years, even before the 21st century started. And what we saw with it was a promise, if you will, and part of that promise was very much about taking education and helping education become more technologically enabled, so that we would see more teaching and learning that was integrating more and more technology. A lot of the things that we've been talking about over the last 20 years are some of the items that you can see. Laura was talking about 21st century skills, yeah, and we were having a look just before with flipped learning. But you can see there's a whole process linked to many of these things. Is that they're clearly embedded with technology. But that wasn't the only promise. There was also, on the other side of the coin, that idea of a more collaborative, work-based and data-driven type of learning and teaching entering. So what we would see is much more of the areas that you can see below, much more differentiated instruction, much more interdisciplinary teaching, project-based learning, yeah, cultural sensitivity, social and emotional learning. All of those areas were things that we were told would become naturally part of 21st century learning. Yeah. As I said, yeah, we don't have to worry about the details of all of them, but I can certainly send you these slides as well as some links that come through. So that was the promise that we had, and it does raise a question, especially when we think about Canım Türkiye. Of all those elements that I've just shown you, which of them have become a reality in Turkey, in our schools, in our classrooms, over the past 20 years? Now, if you could say 100% of them guaranteed, that'd be very different. But I think that the whole point is, if you have quick looking in group chat, just give me a percentage of all of those things that we looked at that you can now say are a reality in the group chat. Okay. All right. Well, if I was to look at that, I would say, sadly, not enough of them. Not anywhere near enough of them. I mean, we've had 20 years to work on those areas, but the vast majority of schools, unless that school has a very good reputation and lots of money, we just haven't seen the progress that we were promised. Yeah. Okay. Let's come back to the pandemic. And this is a very much a 21st century pandemic, but in a way, it was also a technologically driven experiment, because one, we didn't expect it. It was an experiment in emergency remote instruction. It wasn't online learning. All of a sudden, yeah, we were given this great emergency and we had to dive into the particular experiment that we're talking about. And most of us have been there for about 3 months. Now, this is very different because essentially what happened is we got hit by Mr. COVID. We had very little notice. Most of us hadn't prepared for it. A lot of teachers didn't, for example, have the technological skills to be able to realize this. So it actually was quite painful for many teachers. If we were honest, if we've had any success, however, during this emergency experiment, it's been because of the teachers, because the teachers have worked amazingly hard to make many of those things a reality themselves. Now, the issue is, if we come back and look at the points that we were talking about for 21st century learning again, and we look at all of those areas, and we ask a slightly different question, did we see teachers and learners making progress with all of these elements of 21st century learning during the recent COVID emergency experiment? What would our answers be? Go on, in the group chat. Give me a yes or a no. Did we see teachers and learners making progress? Yes, a few people are saying yes, and I would agree. Yeah, I feel that we did make a great deal of progress there. Okay, we might look at the areas and think, okay, we didn't make perfect progress. No, nobody is perfect. Yeah, but you could see definitely there was progress there, and I would actually argue that for the majority of teachers, we've actually seen more progress during the COVID emergency than we saw in the 20 years of so-called 21st century teaching and learning that we were supposed to see with the 21st century. Now, a lot of people have already started to review the kind of lessons that we've sort of learned as a result. And it's kind of interesting is when you look at them, people are saying, yes, we made progress, but we still have to do more. For example, the 5 lessons, if you look at all of the commentary that's coming out, a lot of people are saying, look, design is clearly important. How do we design the right kind of programs? How do we design the right kind of learning opportunities, tasks and activities? And that makes a lot of sense. You know, we had teachers trying to do this, but because COVID hit us so quickly, we weren't always able to get things ready beforehand. The second point, motivation. Just before we started there, that issue of motivation is important, but it's as important as the content. As language teachers, as important as the communication skills, the vocabulary, the skills that we're trying to help the students with. We've also seen that what the learner does outside of class is just as important. There were a lot of issues. There were a lot of issues with students not doing enough learning in their remote classrooms as they did previously in their face-to-face classes. So it became apparent that students had to do more outside of class. So you can see that there's a bit of criticism, is that, you know, some bits of it worked, but others didn't. The big one, is clearly we have to rethink assessment. The traditional type of assessment that we've been using just doesn't seem to fit into the remote context as much. And the good one, which I do like, is most people seem to agree that technology can't replace us. That's what we've picked up from the experiment. So again, you can see the lessons that we've learned there are also suggesting that there's more that needs to be done, which makes sense. Yeah? A couple of people have taken it to another level in terms of outlining the kind of teacher training that we have to do to ensure that all teachers can be more inspirational, they can be more effective in a remote environment. And again, if you look at the kind of things that people are talking about, this one's not actually mine, it's Nick Peachy. I can send you the link here as well. Nick has kind of summarized 6 areas that people seem to be sort of talking about. And these are all areas that maybe we can help teachers with more. So the first one there is clearly environmental. Yeah, how does the physical world affect the virtual world of teaching and learning? So teachers have to be aware of that. Hardware, software, the conditions that we're working under. Yeah? Technical is another one. Now, a lot of people put attention on this, saying that, you know, teachers have to learn more technology, but it's not just learning more technology, it's sort of really understanding what the possibilities and limitations are from certain software, from platforms and tools that we're using. What's useful about them, what's not so useful about them. And that's something most people agree. Interpersonal skills and knowledge. The interpersonal dynamics in a face-to-face class are very, very different to those in a virtual classroom. How relationships develop are very different. So that's obviously an area we can help teachers with. Pedagogical, yeah, the idea of how do we promote learning in remote classrooms. Most of us have got a great understanding of how to do it in a face-to-face environment. Maybe we need more help in the virtual environment. Behavioral is an important thing. Just exactly how behavior affects virtual learning. Not just the behavior of learners, but the behavior of teachers as well. Okay, and again, motivational comes up. How do we really understand the challenges of motivation? What techniques can we use to help build motivation in our students? Now, the same with the points I noted earlier. Here, if you look at these, they're saying that teachers have made progress, but we need to make more progress. So again, there's still work to be done in those areas. But it has to be noted, though, that we haven't really done enough research in these areas. A lot of these ideas are things that people are sharing. There's no evidence behind them. So it made me consider, well, you know, what's going to happen when our schools reopen and when they close down again? A lot of people say we're going to be having issues like this, but and it's true, obviously. But I think possibly the biggest concern is what happens when, or if, probably when, we have a second wave, especially as we come closer to autumn, a second wave of COVID, and we've actually got to use remote teaching again. Touch wood, but it's probably going to happen. So one of the things that I have been considering is the fact that looking at teachers in Turkey, for example, and I've been fortunate enough to have worked with around 3,000 teachers over the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks, just to help them and also see the kind of things that they've been doing. So for this session, I posed myself this question, which is, you know, what did the most inspirational and effective teachers do to deal with the recent COVID emergency experiment? What was it that they did? And I think the first thing was, again, something that Nick outlined, is most of them recognized that they didn't have problems with their lessons because the teachers were unprepared. Most good teachers are always prepared, or even that the technology was inadequate. But technology works most of the time. But they failed because the students were unprepared for the experience of studying in a live online classroom. Now that's an important part. And what that suggested is that training was a critical factor for most students. So a lot of these inspirational and effective teachers focused on training of their students to actually help their students get used to the remote environment they were in. I mean, different teachers were using different things. Some were using Skype, Google Classroom, you know, breakout rooms. We'll come back to that in a minute to help them do pair work and group work. They were using different tools, Padlet, Mentimeter. Some were using blogs, Quizlet, for example. Kahoot, I'm sure a lot of you have been using Kahoot, great fun for students. And you know, things like Teams and even Kaizen. Now, the interesting thing with all of these platforms and tools is that a lot of them, when we come to work with, are essentially new digital toys. And some of them are great. Teachers have been discovering a lot of these. I love this one here. It's called Google Auto Draw, and it works a little bit like your self-correct, your autocorrect on your phone, but with pictures. So if you're drawing pictures on your whiteboard, it will actually recognize the picture that you've got, and it will give you a drop-down menu of alternatives. So if you want to draw a picture of a kangaroo, you try and draw a kangaroo, and it will give you a suggestion. Now, teachers have found this amazingly good for storytelling, for tense reviews when they're using pictures, and students adore it too, especially younger students. Yeah, you have a play around with it later, but again, it's a really useful tool. Also, we've seen lots of new resources that we've got. Previously, we had whiteboard resources, but with something like whiteboard.fi, yeah, what you've got is a situation where the teacher can have a whiteboard and every student has one of their own as well. So the teacher can actually check student understanding, students can ask each other questions, and students love this because they get to take control of their own whiteboard. Again, great resource. Yeah. Other ideas. This one is lovely. I absolutely love it. EFL Digital. It gives you a whole range of different tools so that students, for example, with My Audio can record themselves. You can give them quizzes. Yeah, they can write their assignments for you and you can write them up. You can do gap fills. You can do a whole range of things. And that variety really helps students as well. Now, the issue with all of these is they're all very easy for teachers to use, for students to use. But when we look at some other platforms, they're not as easy. And this actually is the thing that becomes really important. When we look at that idea of training, we have to understand that students are going to need support in those areas. But part of that support is also helping them to get the right kind of digital learning mindset. If they've not been in an environment where they've been doing these things, they're not going to have that mindset. So a lot of the very inspirational teachers and effective ones, yeah, have been building role modeling and activities that will help create that learning mindset, helping students deal with frustration, celebrating mistakes. not worrying about technological misfires, yeah, promoting a questioning culture. They focused a lot more on those areas so that students become more comfortable, and they've been walking their own talk. So you can see that linking these two areas and giving students training in those areas has been critical. But they've also focused on the basics at the same time. And one of the most important basics is classroom management. But they've understood that classroom management in a face-to-face classroom and in a remote classroom are very different. One thing that obviously comes up when we talk about classroom management are rules and consequences and discipline. And that's the same in face-to-face. But when we look at a situation of remote classroom, you can see that some of the rules are very, very different. And teachers who haven't had experience of a remote classroom were not ready for a lot of these rules. Making sure that students keep their webcams on, making sure they don't mute. Students using headphones, using a laptop or a desktop, all of these basic ideas, and also making sure that we get students involved in creating a lot of those rules. A lot of us do that in the classroom, but the situation is going to be very different in a remote environment. But when we look at effective classroom management, it's not only rules and consequences. Effective and inspirational teachers also know that relationships are critical. You might have seen this from Rita Pearson. So true. Teddy Roosevelt and Maxwell, the whole idea of care. Students want to know that we care. All right. And so a lot of teachers have been rethinking, now I'm not in a face-to-face classroom, how do I connect with our kids in a remote learning environment? All right. And some of them have said one-on-one video check-ins every week. So finding time on their timetable just to connect one-on-one with students. And this actually is the #1 tool that the most effective teachers have been using. If you're struggling with time, you can actually do mini groups where you've got 3 or 4 students and you can work with them together. Or even just having a town hall gathering where you get students together, you see how they're doing, how many students are doing well, what kind of activities are working. All of these are going to help us, and you can see they're all based, they're all based on connection. All right. The other issue, though, and this is where I will say, more so than rules and consequences, are systems and procedures at the same time. And you can see these factors are actually more important than rules and consequences. Because, as we know, discipline is not the biggest problem. Often, if we've got classroom management problems, it's the lack of procedures and routines, the lack of a plan organizing the classroom for success. And it's those systems which help us minimize interruptions, losing time, keeping students engaged and getting things done. Those are the things that are important. Now, most of us do those things in a face-to-face classroom, but when the remote emergency came up, we forgot. So we had to look at what different kind of procedures we're going to need. Calming down students at the start of the day is very different face-to-face than it is online. So we've got to have a different procedure. We've got to have a different signal, and we've got to have a process that students go through. Using breakout rooms. How do we get students to leave the main room and go into a breakout room? Okay. What do we do with students who do mute themselves? All right. As teachers, we have to design those procedures. And what we found is that very inspirational, effective teachers do plan a lot of those activities. Yeah. They also use tools as well, some of the online tools that they can use. This is a great one, yeah, classroom screen, again, using it, yeah, with the different tools that you can use, timers, type of activities, yeah, all of these things here. Again, you can look at this one a little bit later, but it's a wonderful tool. But at the end of the day, what was important is the relationships. Okay, very quickly, because I'm going to run out of time. This side is empty at the moment. And this is actually critical in terms of the most effective teachers. Yeah? Any idea? What's the missing piece of that jigsaw? Any ideas? Go on, group chat. What is it that these inspirational teachers also focus on? Okay, lots of people say it's motivation, yeah? But I'm going to say no, it's not motivation. Motivation is extremely important, but we have to remember that all motivation is internal. It's what people feel. If somebody else tries to motivate you, it might happen for a little bit, but it's not going to happen for very long. The bottom line is you cannot motivate anyone. We motivate ourselves. But there is something that's important. Just like teachers don't create learning, yeah, our job is to create the conditions. And it's those conditions which can help motivation improve. So what we've got there is, rather than putting motivation there, we're going to put student engagement. So these effective inspirational teachers are focusing on training, they're focusing on classroom management, and they're focusing on student engagement. And this is where we get the message from Rebecca here. If they are engaged, they are managed. Yani, if students are really engaged in something, they don't mess about as much. They're not as naughty. Yeah. All right. If you look, this remains the same in activities books or so on. If you have a quick look at this activity, you can see one of the things that comes up in this one is, if we give this to most students, they're going to be very boring. Yeah. But look what we can do with it. A teacher adapts it, and we give them 6 pictures of doors. What we look at is we have a discussion about the doors. Who lives behind the doors? Yeah, which of these doors is yours? Why? And then we still give them the same writing activity, but there's a couple of subtle changes. There's an element of mystery, curiosity. There's an element of choice. Okay, and it's those 2 elements which are creating the conditions, okay, that make this activity more fun. So when we look at the concept of student engagement, you can see that all of the elements that we've got here, curiosity, discovery, problem solving, creativity, okay, fun, collaboration, all of those things are the things that help us with student engagement. And we can see that those inspirational and effective teachers are always looking for ways to make these happen. Especially this one in language classes. They're still trying to use pair work and group work. Now, this has been a bit of a problem because a lot of us know the type of communicative activities we want to do. But yeah, the tools that we often have, breakout rooms, getting students to go in groups, have created a lot of problems for a lot of teachers, a lot of issues. And a lot of teachers have given up But inspirational teachers have still focused on that notion of how can I have good classroom management in my breakout rooms? How can I have good engagement in my breakout rooms? And they've kept up with it. They haven't gone back, to a kind of spoon feeding, which is far worse than some of the things they would do in their face-to-face activities. They're still hoping, to keep a learning playground going. They're still trying to have challenge. They're still trying to give students feedback. They're still encouraging questioning and scaffolding, helping students as they need them, because they're the processes that go through. Okay, so you can see very clearly the key to success there is teacher learning. And a lot of those most effective, most inspirational teachers became students of their own teaching, face-to-face and remote. And they looked for ways to adapt what they would do in a face-to-face classroom in a remote context. All right, they were asking themselves different types of questions. So they were trying to reflect to make sure that they were getting better. So how did they prepare? Did they do enough training? Okay, did they have effective classroom management procedures? They checked, are they working? The same with techniques and strategies to engage. And they kept asking, can I do anything else? That was how a lot of people stayed effective in that environment. Okay, now I've actually gone over time a little bit. I'm really sorry. Who's coming after me? Is it Arthur? Our bottom line. What's our bottom line here? Very cool.
Not my first time. Go on.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So this is what we say. What happened in this battle? Well, my argument would be that the pandemic actually won. I think we actually saw more growth, more reimagineering through the pandemic. Was it painful? Hell yes. It was remarkably painful. But we actually saw a lot more reinvention taking place. The past 20 years, maybe it's a big thing for me to say, but I'm basing this on all the teachers that I've been working with and talking to here in Turkey, is I think we saw more progress. That's the bottom line. All of the areas that we talked about, we saw people making more progress. Even if they didn't become, wonderful in all those technological tools and classroom management systems in a remote environment, they built their confidence. They were better able to work with some of those areas. Nobody had the level of success like this. It's impossible, But I think we've started to see the right kind of success because we had no choice. But what is it that Plato said? Necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that worked. And this picture is very much like my 32-year-old marriage. Trust me. What I've tried to give you here is a summary of what I have found from about 2,500, 3,000 teachers. And the ones that were working to inspire their students weren't facing as many of the challenges, were focusing on those areas. Okay, and you can see a lot of those areas aren't necessarily related to technology. That's a byproduct. It's second. These teachers were focusing on learning first, technology second. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much. I'll make sure I share my notes here. If you want to get in touch, if you had any questions, that's my email. And I'm going to go because I've gone over time. Thank you very much. I'll pass you back. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Gore.
Okay, my pleasure.
Okay, Colonia is okay, well, but where is Turkish Delight?
More Colonia here. There you go. More.
Okay, see you. Thank you for everything.
Okay, my pleasure. My pleasure. Take care. Take care.
Thanks. Okay, to be able to create a term like reimagineering, I think requires a wide point of view based on a great experience. It's about imagination and engineering and reimagining and re-engineering while continuously taking the changes into consideration. Oh, we have to be so dynamic.
So I'm guessing the magic word is dynamic?
Yeah. So...
No. This
What?
time I'm asking the holy question. Who is up next, Mustafa?
So this is also experience, huh?
Thank you.
Okay, good. Sure. He is our last guest today. And when we talk about being dynamic, I always remember Errol Artun. And he started his education life in the US and studied there until high school. Then he came back to Turkey and studied university in Turkey. He worked as a native speaker for 10 years in a variety of schools. During his teaching career, he had a chance to work with different age groups. Errol believes learning shouldn't be stuck in the classroom, so his skills help him to reach students more effectively. Within these 10 years of experience, he had a chance to show his skills to different teachers. Also, his business involves learning strategies. Therefore, he attends every single valuable and available teaching seminars all around the world. With his crowd control skills and addressing capacity, his company assigned him as teacher trainer. Congratulations, Errol, by the way. He has been a passionate teacher trainer ever since. Okay, Mr. Artun, we are ready to listen to you.
All right. Well, I thank you, first of all, for organizing such a great event, and I'm really happy to be part of this.
We are happy.
And first of all, I'd like to start. Tani was great, and I feel really bad about, like, he stole the idea. The education enişte was a remarkable way to start this. So I really admire him, and all these audience and people who attended this. That was a remarkable thing. So thank you again for making me part of it. Well, I'm going to start, first of all, before I go to the presentation, I want to start with, like, ask this question, because more we ask questions, if we can ask more questions, I think we can develop ourselves more, and we get to learn something out of this unfortunate event. So this is, like, this pandemic and what's happening in the world is changing a lot of things, and it's happening instantly. So what we have to do is, like, we have to adapt ourselves. That's another very important thing. So today we're going to asking these questions, and let me start with sharing the desktop. There you go. This one. I think you guys can see it right now. Yeah. I think it's working right now.
Yeah,
right?
Working, right.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So we're going to talk about definition of success and adjustment for our ELT system. And first, we have to ask this question, like, what is success when it comes to our ELT system? And then we're going to ask this question, what can we do to improve ourselves and motivate young learners? Which actually quite important question. And I can tell you this because we're living in the age of the internet. So this gives us unlimited capacity. There are different programs, different things that we can learn and adapt our classroom. So this is quite important. We need to define our problem and then come up with a game plan, which is, let's get something straight. As a teacher, we all feel a little uncomfortable in front of the camera. I don't know you guys, but I feel it like that. This is an interesting thing. And I, as watching you, just directly, and you're going to be able to talk about, like, to talk directly to 500 people, 1,000 people. That's a different thing, and it's a different energy. And we're adapting ourselves to this thing. This is really interesting. Once we were doing our lessons in a classroom and in a classroom environment, but right now we're doing our lessons in the living room, in the middle of the living room of our students. and maybe their parents are watching, and it's a different feeling. I think you all get me. So we need to come up with a game plan. That's another thing. And then we're going to talk about the 5C, which is one of the most important thing for me is the choice. The choice part is now changing the game, because you all know that most kids today, I'm talking about the age of between 5 and 10, they have a lack of attention span. This is most of their problem. You can't really make them sit down and like concentrate to your lesson. This is really a difficult task to do for a kid. But right now we have to do that without being in the same classroom. Now this is another challenge. So we're going to talk about that too. Let me start with a definition of success. And the best definition that I've ever been able to find is success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So we have to put an ideal for ourselves first. We have to define what we're up to, why we're doing this, the English lessons and everything, why we're doing it, how should we do it. So once we put an ideal, if we're doing this for grades, for different testing assignments or something, that's a different approach. If you're doing this for speaking, that's completely a different approach. So first, we have to define what we're looking for, and then progressively realizing what we should do. And at the end, success is something like inevitable, like we can't miss it. We're going to be successful anyway. All right, I put this as a joke. So this is common qualities of a successful student. I took this from American education system, and this is how they define successful students. So funny: determination, self-reliance, willpower, patience. Like, I'm looking at these things. I'm 35 years old. I don't have self-reliance. I mean, I shouldn't have eaten that lunch with all that carb inside. I can't really rely on myself. Yet I should rely on the kids. Optimism, connection, passion. I don't think these are common qualities of successful students. I think some of them can be our own qualities, so that students can take it from us. This is students can imitate it easily. So when they see it, some of them, like if you're patient, if you have good communication skill, if you're like self-confident, kids can take that from you. So choose 3 of them and try to nourish it in yourself so that kids can take it from you. This is an important thing. All right, let me continue. So what can be done? Improvement on ourselves and students. A lot of my colleagues before me, they told you many different programs, and there are a lot of things that you can search because we're living on internet age. There are like limitless programs and a lot of different things. But what I suggest for you, as an humble suggest that pick one program and try to master that. That's really important. Once you master that program, I'm talking about communication-wise, this program is a really good, actually, example, and there's Zoom and many other things. Choose one program and master that program so that you can actually reach your students every way that you can. This is really important. In this kind of an education model, we have to start from all over. Don't forget that this education system that we are in it right now, it's designed in early 1900s. So this is, we all know that, like, as a teachers and students and parents, of course, we all know that this education system had to be changed. We know that now, because of a really unnecessary force, I'm talking about COVID-19, we had to change it instantly. Now we're trying to adapt, but we have to change that immediately in a better way. And this internet provides us that system. First, we have to find what we're looking for. So there comes the next one. We can start learning about our students and become their role model. This is an important thing. What they are up to, like what do they like? What kind of things that they care about? We have to find it out. I'm sorry, but this is something really hard to remember. I'm 35 years old again. I have to remember it. But think about this. How were the things for you when you were 6 years old, 7 years old? What are the things that you liked? That was a really interesting thing compared to your beliefs and your likes and dislikes today. Things have like really changed for you. So you need to remember those things in order to reach your kids. Once you remember those things, you can be a role model for them so that they can actually start caring about you and your lesson more. This is a little bit like a difficult thing to do it, but once you master it, it's like it's an amazing thing that you can do so many things with the kids. For example, being like viral videos and using viral videos in your lesson, that changes completely everything, which we're going to talk in a minute. Complete change on education system, of course. That's an amazing thing. I wish that we could have done it like I don't know, 20, maybe 30 years ago, but who has the time, right? Okay, I'm continuing. And just the right amount of parent-teacher and parent-student time. Well, when I say this, most people get me wrong when I talk about this. Like, people think WhatsApp groups, you know what I'm talking about, where parents constantly asking you questions and you politely answer them. I'm not talking about that. Parent-teacher and parent-student time is really important because you got only 8 hours in a day with these kids. Whatever you do, how successful you do it, it doesn't matter. The kid goes home, and when he or she comes back, you ask them about future tense, gone. You ask about like what you taught them, it's like it's not there. So we need to involve parents to our game so that we can be actually more successful. All right, I'm gonna focus on 21st century skills and Generation Z, which actually I can't really see the time. I think I have time. That's good. We have these 5 skills: choice, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. When it comes to these things, I want to focus today on choice, but let me talk about collaboration. Let's start with that. Collaboration is something that we needed because the modern time, the corporations and everything, they're looking for people who can collaborate with others. So we have to give this skill to them. Communication is such an important skill we all need to have. Interesting fact that only the best speaker in town, which I'm talking about the education industry here, the best speaker in town has 30% speaking skill. Imagine this, like the best guy, who can do it like 30%. The rest is doing like with the hand gestures, the mimics and everything. So we have to master that skill as well. Critical thinking, mostly misunderstood thing, because most people, when it comes to critical thinking, most people understand like, I don't like this, what is this, why we have this, like criticism based thinking, but it's not really like that. Critical thinking comes with the solution. So another important thing. And finally, creativity, which is long gone. We've never had that in our education system unless we change it. So we need creativity, but that's another day's topic. Today I want to talk about choice, because if you have different lessons, different things to get these kids' attention, which most of them are already ADHD. This is actually, most of them are diagnosed ADHD. They're suffering from this. So if you give them different choices in your lesson, that will affect the lesson quality. Okay. So what kind of different things you can do? I call these things signature lessons. I love to call them signature lessons because these lessons belong to you. These are the things you can do. You don't have to spend a lot of time to create these lessons, and it is very, very creative to do it. All right. So check this out. I can play guitar. I can play piano. So I love karaoke lesson, which we'll talk in a minute. Talk about in a minute. Video lessons are amazing things to do, which I'll show you a lot of different resources that you can do. Role play lesson is one of my personal favorite, because back when I was in a college, I used to play a lot of role play games, which was actually a big influence for me. And then experiment lessons, which is also related with videos, but we're going to come to that in a minute. How can we do these things? Like, in what way we can do these things? Thanks to CLIL. Well, CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning, which means whatever you find fancy, whatever you take like interesting, whatever you watched last night, that can become your lesson. I'm not talking about all the Netflix content here, of course. No, not that. But when it comes to feeding yourself with new information, if those things are interesting for you, it can be as interesting for your students as well. That's my point. So let's continue with karaoke lesson. This is a simple texture that I actually designed, and I love doing it. It's a very simple thing. What we are trying to do here, I love this thing. This is a Stand By Me, like everybody knows this song, but my aim is not only to reaching the kids, no, but I also want to reach the parents as well. All right, I choose these songs, I call them cheesy songs. No offense to anyone who likes this song. I love this song personally, but I choose these songs like cheesy because imagine this. You've done this lesson, karaoke lesson at home, and kids learned it and they went home. Imagine that when they're at home, they're mumbling, they're trying to sing it, and once the parents are asking like, where did you learn this? How did you get this? And they say, well, my English teacher taught me. Voila! Now you're inside home and you're doing your lesson is now taking part at home, so that parents can be part of your lesson. This is the idea, and it's a very easy way to do it. All you have to do, take out the lyrics, make some gaps between the words and everything, choose the targeted vocabulary. Voila, your lesson is ready. You don't have to play an instrument to do this lesson. There are like millions and millions of different karaoke videos on YouTube. You can download every single one of them and do it in your lesson, and kids love it. First of all, they don't consider this as a lesson. That's another good thing. While you're doing this in 30 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't know how you guys are doing it online systems, and every school has a different system though, but most of them don't even consider this as a lesson, and it's an amazing way to continue your lesson after you finish it. This is what I like about karaoke lesson. All right, I'm going to continue with video lesson. Video lesson is all about, remember we talked about whatever you watch at night can become a lesson. I told you this. Let me actually show you something. This is a video lesson, and I chose it from Cars. Okay, it's a very favorite topic for kids. These are the target vocabularies, right? I chose them. You can change these things. And while you're doing it, the good thing is, because we're doing it online, you don't really need to express every single detail by talking or with, imagine this. There's this explanation. Look at this. Turbo, and explained in Cambridge Dictionary, used to describe an engine or machine in which power is produced by a turbo. I already bored while I'm reading because it's really difficult. But when you try to teach a word with another word, when you try to teach another easy word that is actually targeted by your unit or your book, you can actually give them easily, okay? And you don't always have to explain it by writing. You can show them a video. Imagine this. This is suspension, all right? And I don't think whether it'll work or not. It's working. I hope you can hear it. This is only like 30-second video. Every single time it gets me. Now, my point is, once you watch something like this, you can't forget. It's like, that's why it's called viral. It's viral for you. It's viral for the kids as well. They're sharing these videos among themselves. And imagine that they're sharing a video that they have learned in their English lesson. They can't forget that experience. That's like, our aim should be like that. So that was my point. When you do your video lesson, we watch thousands of different videos, and I'm including Instagram, YouTube, and there are like Facebook, many other social platforms. We are constantly exposed with videos, and there are interesting ones that you can find. Strongly suggest for you to try OK Go videos. They're like music group, and they have like amazing concepts so that you can share it with your kids. My point is, once you choose your videos and your lesson plans according to yourself, honestly, I'm being honest here, honestly to yourself, because you have to like it first so that kids can take that from you, because they cannot imitate, they cannot really do something that they don't have. Once you start the lesson without knowing what you're going to do, how you're going to do, when you're going to do, this actually reflects them. So, but if you choose your lesson, if you choose your material according to yourself, that will affect everything, okay? And I'm going to continue. You can always find useful questions, but this is extra job, okay? Like writing questions and everything. Also, there's an easy way to do it. Let me show you this. I think right now I stopped sharing, right? There you go. I'm going to start with this one. Now, check this out. Oops. There you go. Now, this is a website that you can actually, there are like hundreds of different topics. Maybe you've seen it, maybe not. And each topic has also hundreds of different questions, which you can just choose from here and add it to your lesson. It's an easy peasy activity. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to here. No, sorry. How much time I have, by the way? I think I'm passing it.
You have 3 minutes more.
3 minutes more. Okay,
yeah.
I can save the world in 3 minutes. All right. Now, let's do this. After the questions, this is the role play lesson. This is one of my favorite. What you can do, you can actually create your own world here and give these kids different paper sheets and everything so that they can create their characters. Now, role play comes with a different thing. When they are acting, they really don't understand the fact that whether they're doing it by themselves or they're acting it. So that's the time. After like 10 minutes of the lesson, they forgot the fact that they are all speaking English because they have to be part of this. Now, these worlds can be sci-fi themed topics like time travel or something, or personal fan of Indiana Jones, so adventure themed topics can be a huge thing. So you can try that as well. And you have to create a character creation sheet, which you can find on Google. All you have to write to Google character creation sheet, and there are like thousands of different materials you get to find. And once they created their character, you can start your lesson asking them questions about their characters. Imagine that you're doing a lesson about appearance, right? You're asking, okay, I want you to describe your friend to me, and the kids' reactions are always same. They're looking at you and they say, "Teacher, yeah, can't you see my teacher? Teacher, uzatma." That's what they have. The kids have this tendency. But once you ask them about their characters, I want you to describe your character, they get more anxious about it. They want to be the best. They want to be the most strongest one. And they have these kind of tendencies. So try this role play lesson. It's an amazing signature lesson that you get to try. And experimenting lesson. There are videos, like there are many life hack videos. DIY videos are my favorite, do-it-yourself videos. All you have to do is just find those things, add it to your lesson, and once you're done, they have something concrete in their hands, and they made it out of English lesson. You see, my point is, once you do something, whatever you do, it doesn't matter, it has to be functional in real life. Because if only you're using it in the classroom, no offense, but don't get me wrong, but this is not really useful. You have to do something concrete so that they can use it outside of classroom. And experimenting lessons are one of them, and it's easy way to do it. All right, I think I think the time is up, and again thanking you all for the possibility for adding me this great event, and I'm expecting more and many more to come in. Thank you, guys.
We thank you for participating and sharing such lovely ideas with us, Errol.
Thank you very much.
Errol, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, see you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, this is the end of our first ELT conference, sadly. I hope you all enjoyed it, dear guests and audiences. Mustafa, would you like to say something?
Yes. I really would like to thank our guests today for their cooperation. They accepted our offer and contributed to our conference. And we were planning to have this ELT conference in our school, but as you know, because of COVID-19, we plan to do it online by reorganizing everything. And I really appreciate our audience. They listen to us carefully and patiently. Their constructive criticism will be welcomed all the time. And thank you all again. Buse, I think you would like to inform our audience about the raffle and certificates?
Yep, I would love to.
Okay.
Let me start with the certificates. If you check your chat box now, you will see the link for the certificates, and you need to fill out the form in 1 hour to get it online in 3 days max. Then the link will be expired. This is number one. Number two, because of the number of presents and we preferred not to do it live at the very moment, we will do it after the conclusion, and you can learn about the results on our website at 8 p.m. today. Raffles will be recorded and you can watch it on our website too. The presents will be sent to the winners via cargo by the sponsor company. And we have to come to the conclusion. We wish you a healthy, happy, and successful life and career. See you next year.
Okay, see you next year.